Recording in progress.
Welcome, everyone. It feels early and empty, but we're going to start. We're at 7 o'clock. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Newton City Council Land Use Committee meeting. With us here in the chamber, members of the Land Use Committee, we have from Ward 1, Allison Leary, from Ward 2, Tariq Lucas, from Ward 3, me, Andrea Kelly. I'm the chair. No one yet from Wards 4 or 5, but from Ward 6, we have Alan Lobovitz, Ward 7, Mark Laredo. And I will introduce other members if and when they arrive. Oh, Councillor Andrea Downs from Ward 5 is on Zoom. We do have staff with us tonight from the clerk's office, helping keep us on track is Katie Holden and the chamber. From the planning department on Zoom, we have Katie Wewell, Joe Iadonisi, Kat Kemet. From the law department, we have Jonah Temple, and I think that's it for staff right now. We also are joined by a few other counselors so far, not on the committee, but very welcome, Julia Maliki and Rick Liphoff. Let me just see if I'm missing. And Josh Kritzman. Great. Again, I will try and welcome and introduce other people as they show up. The first item we have before us tonight is number 154-25, which is a request to further extend non-conforming FAR and to allow 3 stories at 30 Glendale Road. Do we have someone for the petitioner who is going to speak to this? Yes? Come to the microphone, thanks. At the base of the microphone, there's a button to make sure that's on. Let's give it a try. Let's hear you.
You hear me? Hello?
No.
Hello? Hello?
Yes. Just give us your name and address and
I'm Emily Linendahl, and this is my husband, Adrian Cove, and we live at 30 Glendale Road. We've been living in Newton for 8 years, and we've been living at this location for 5 years. And we have 3 children, 2 of whom go to Ward School, and we have an upcoming kindergartner who will go at Ward as well. So we love Newton. We've been here for a long time. And the reason why we're here is that we want to get more space for our family. I have talked to a number of our surrounding neighbors about the project, and they are excited and in agreement with what we wanted. So I'm going to turn it over to my husband, who's going to talk more about the project.
thank you. Welcome. You speak into the microphone too, so we can hear you when you get recorded. Thanks.
Good evening. My name's Adrian Cove from 30 Glendale Road, Newton. So I will go over quickly the some pictures of the house existing.
We do see that photo.
Get one picture, okay. Guess I'll have to do these one by one. So this is the front of the home, back. Another picture of the back. The way the lot's sloped, you can see here, this causes the basement to be included as floor area. And we'll do, I think I have one more here of the side and the slope on the driveway. Next, I was going to go over just some of the neighbors' houses so you can see what the neighborhood looks like. Sec.
So while he's doing that, I'll just explain that because of the topology of the lot, the basement is counted as floor space. And so this is requiring us to put in a 3rd floor, which when you look from the street, it would actually be a 2-story house. So it's it's kind of, Adrian's going to show some pictures of our neighbors, which aligns with the look and feel of our street and the neighbors. Um, and so the reason why we're here is because of the FAR ratio and because of the way that our lot is sloped.
Okay, so this is just, I'll go through this quickly. This is kind of gives you a idea of the neighborhood. So this is a newer home. This one is right behind Temple Emmanuel. I think they own this home. This is a house right next door to us. This is across the street. This is the only house on the street that is similar to ours. Ours is existing as like a ranch. This is somewhat like a ranch, although it looks like they have living space in the attic. And the rest of the houses, you can see the standard layout is a basement, first floor, second floor, and then an attic, which is what we're proposing. This is the house right next door. So now I'll go over our plans.
While you're just organizing yourselves, I also would like to acknowledge and welcome Councillor Block. Randy Block has joined us in the chamber, and Councillor Farrell, Stephen Farrell has joined us in the chamber also, both members of the Land Use Committee.
So this is what we're proposing. These are black and white drawings. I'll go through these quickly. This is the west side. This is the back. This is the east side, and this is the front, which is the south side. A couple of color drawings real quickly.
What's the significance of all the darkness on top?
That is the wood or siding that we'll be putting up because the ranch is brick. And so the second story will be, it's not going to be dark. He's finding the actual
Okay.
proposed color.
I was just wondering if that was
Nice.
all addition or not. I didn't think so. Oh, here we go.
It is the addition. So we're going straight up. So this is the proposal of what the house will look like.
Okay, and there's color of the front. And then there's color of the back. The only other couple of things I wanted to show you was the site plan, and then I'll just point a couple of things out on the zoning review memo. Here's the site plan. Whatever you can make out there.
Did you want to point something out to us on that site plan?
I didn't have anything in particular to point out on the site plan.
Okay.
But so here's the zoning review memo. I did want to point out that as far as the height goes, because we're going up, that may be of interest. So 36 feet is what's required, and so we're less than that at 34. And then we're not changing any of the lot coverage or the open space. So we're just leaving those because we're not making any changes to the footprint. So that's everything I have. We feel this design is consistent with the other houses in the neighborhood, as I showed earlier. And then we're working with the Curtis Group. So Scott Curtis, the owner of the firm, he's on Zoom tonight. So if there's any questions for him, and that's everything we have.
That's your architect?
He's a design build firm.
Design build. Okay. Thank you. So the only things you're really needing waivers on is the frontage and the FAR,
What do you mean by the?
according to this chart that you just have up on the screen.
Yeah, we're not changing the frontage. So the front setback, or
And the 3 stories, of course. Yes. Okay. Let's hear from planning, Mr. Iadonissi.
Yep. Good evening, Joy O'Donoghue from the planning department. There we go. All right. Okay, this is for 30 Glendale Road. It is a special permit to further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and allow 3 stories. As the petitioner has shown in the memo, they're looking to go up to 3 stories and a 0.6 from a 0.47, where 0.38 is the maximum for their floor area ratio. A look at the topography. The petitioner showed those pictures, which showed the topography does lead to the right side and rear being majorly exposed, which causes the first floor to be the basement. And as it stands right now, they're 2 stories, and when they add on above, they're going to have 2 stories above their basement, totaling 3. The terrain generally slopes down as it goes to the north from Ashford Road to the north there. It's located by Center Street, kind of directly in between Newton Corner and Newton Center, where there's a lot of single family uses. And like the petitioner said, a variety of different styles or showed a variety of different styles of homes in the neighborhood. That's the zoning relief again. The criteria to consider is that the specific site is an appropriate location, that it will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, that the proposed non-conforming floor area ratio from 0.47 to 0.60, where 0.38 is the maximum allowed as of right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, and that the proposed increase in non-conforming floor area ratio from 0.47 to 0.60, where 0.38 is the maximum, is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. That concludes my presentation. Pending any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Iadonisi. Let's see if there are any members of the public who have questions or would like to make a comment about this. I don't see anyone in the chamber who's rushing to the microphone. Let's see if anyone has their hand raised on Zoom. Again, I don't see anything. Ms. Holden, do you know, did we receive any letters on this project through the clerk's office from neighbors or abutters?
I don't believe so.
Okay, interesting. Let's take it into committee and ask some questions. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. Councilor Farrell and I paid a visit this afternoon to this lovely house and wonderful garden. Everyone in the neighborhood has beautiful gardens. And I think the FAR is a little misleading because of the sloping topography. So I personally wish the owners good luck on their project.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Councillor Laredo.
So this is my ward. I know this area pretty well. The only reason you're here is because of the topography of your house. So I'm ready to move this whenever you are, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Laredo. All right, any other? Yes, Councillor Lobovitz.
I was curious how much the basement contributes to the FAR. Does anybody know that?
That's a good question. I think we do have, I think it's,
Yeah, I can try. I have it here. It's
Or Mr. Iadonisi, do you have that easily available?
Yes, so it contributes the same as the floor above the basement does, which is 2,121 square feet, which is roughly 0.13. I believe I can double check the math on that. I might be off on that.
Think.
So, Mr. Iadonisi, what's the total square footage of the livable, habitable space in the house?
The total square footage for gross floor area as it currently is existing is 4,929. And then it is going up to 6,290. I'm sorry. I was absolutely doing math in public wrong here. But it's approximately, given the lot is just over 10,000 square feet, it's about 0.21 for the basement as a contribution to the overall floor area ratio.
But are you saying the house itself will have 6,290 square feet of livable space?
Of gross floor area, that's correct.
Floor area, yes, okay. Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, 0.21. Thank you.
Any other input from the council? If not, we have a motion on the floor. I assume that includes a motion to close the public hearing? Thank you. All in favor?
Move to close the public hearing.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, we do have a motion. Let's take a look at the findings and conditions.
Okay, I will present the proposed findings and conditions. The proposed findings are that the specific site is an appropriate location for the addition that will result in a 3-story dwelling due to the downward slope of the property, which renders the basement as a 3rd story. The dwelling will also present as 2 stories from the street, which is consistent with other single-family homes in the neighborhood. Next, that the 3-story dwelling as designed will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the dwelling with the proposed addition will present as 2 stories from the street, which is consistent with other single-family homes in the neighborhood. That there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the 3-story dwelling as designed, as there are no proposed changes to parking and circulation. That access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. That the proposed increase in the non-conforming floor area ratio from 0.47 to 0.60, where 0.38 is the maximum allowed as of right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. The property features a downward slope from the front to the rear, exposing the basement, which counts towards the non-conforming floor area ratio. And lastly, that the proposed increase in non-conforming floor area ratio from 0.47 to 0.60, where 0.38 is the maximum allowed by right, is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. The property features a downward slope from front to the rear, exposing the 1st story, which counts towards the non-conforming floor area ratio. We have fairly standard conditions, with our first condition referencing the plot plan, which the petitioner has shown, dated March 8th, as well as architectural plans showing each side of the elevations. Our standard condition for the building permit being that the plans submitted for the building permit match and are consistent with those previously referenced plans. And lastly, the certificate of occupancy, including the statement of compliance with condition 1, the approved plans, including the as-built FAR signed by the appropriate professional, as well as a final as-built.
And that concludes your report.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm never quite sure until you tell me you're done. Okay, we have a motion which we'll now vote on.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo,
Aye.
8-0.
Okay, good luck with your project.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Our next item is number 155-25, a request to allow 3 attached single-family dwellings at 3 Newland Street. We'd like to hear from the petitioner first on this. Lawrence Lee, is that going to be you? You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Okay, thank you for, I'm going to lower my hand here. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Lawrence Lee, on behalf of the petitioner, we have with me tonight the MGD Design Group. So if there are any questions for them at a later point, they're here to answer questions. And we have also some neighbors that are here. Joel is waving his hand, so I think he's gets a chance to speak at a later point. And I see Councilor Krinsman here as well too. So thank you. With your permission, Chair, I'd like to share my screen and start my presentation, please.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so this is 3 Newland Street. It's actually a little bit unique, and you'll see why. So we are really at a sort of a dead end-ish type of a street with a great amount of frontage, located right in an MR1 zoning district. You can see clearly that the Mass Pike is just south of us, and there's a variety of different types of shapes and sizes of lots. Primarily, they are multi-family, two-family homes in and around this area. So this green box is where we are. So we have just under 10,000 square feet of land. The by right uses, as you all know, are single and two-family uses. We are proposing 3 single attached dwelling units with an underground parking, and it's a very somewhat unique type of a design to try to minimize the surface parking and driveways and curb cuts on the site. The units are connected on the bottom with a common garage. The floor area ratio is, as you all know, doesn't technically apply to single family attached dwellings, but yet we always provide as a guide. So here we're right in line pretty much with the by right. We're at 0.49, where by right is 0.48. Lot coverage is well below the by right. So by right is 30%. We're under the 25% that's required for single family attached dwellings. And then our setbacks are would require a waiver up to 25 feet, but is still further away from our by right side setback requirements. Here's a Google image showing a superimposed building that's broken up into 2 different pieces. We have building 1 and 2. This is, I credit the definition being changed to allow for the creative design of single family attached dwellings here. This really fits well in the neighborhood in the sense that there are, as you can see, a variety of different types of buildings, shapes, lots. Some of the lots are a little bit undersized with the larger buildings, and you can see also across the street with larger buildings. So it fits really well within the neighborhood. Here's a rendering of what it will look like from the corner of Charles Street and Nealon. The Historical Commission did approve our design. So what you see here tonight is one that they unanimously approved at the beginning of May. So here's a copy of the decision. And now I'm going to dive a little bit into the site. Existing conditions site plan. These black and white plans they don't really quite show up that well with the details, but if you want me to go back into the details of it at a later point, if you have questions, we can go back to it. Here's the orientation of the proposed condition site plan. As I indicated before, there are 2 buildings. It's broken up. There's 1 single driveway with a garage under. So when we started exploring this site and got feedback and met with Ward 4 city councilors, one of the feedback we got was trying to maximize the outdoor usable space for recreational and yard purposes. And so by putting the garage under, that really achieves that goal. The heights that we're proposing are under the required of 36 feet. So this is the existing profile. This is the proposed profile of the 2 buildings. They're both going to be about 35 feet approximately. Zoning table that shows you the proposed conditions versus what's required. As I previously covered, the lot coverage is under 25%. Open space is above the 50%. Frontages as averaging, which can show the site plan. You can kind of see the scaling. And then the building heights are below the by right, as well as the required under the special permit. Unit layouts. There are 3 total units, 2 units in the front building. I'm calling this the front, which is building 1. Building 2 is a single unit. It's almost like a single family house if you look at it from the street. And again, we can go back to any of these if you wish at a later point. Elevations. So here we're standing on Charles Street. This is building 1. That's the front door. And this is building, this is building 1. This is building 2. This side is where we have the Mass Pike, where my cursor is on the right side. This is the front of the larger building. The driveway, you can't really see it here, is where my cursor is, where it slopes downwards and into a garage door, a common garage door. Here's another elevation from our neighbor side, and then more kind of from the Mass Pike side, if you will, another view. So here is a superimposed image of the building layouts over the existing building. These are pictures of the existing building. Again, as I indicated, Historica Commission have already reviewed it and approved it. Landscape plan that kind of shows the green space, outdoor patio spaces that is maximized due to the singular driveway. Here's some examples of the hardscapes and landscape and fencing. One of the other benefits here is that we have a great amount of frontage on streets. We're kind of wrapped around here. So one of the requirements that we will have is to replace the entirety of the sidewalk and adding granite curbing, which is a typical requirement from the city engineer's office. So as you can see that there is no curbing here. So this streetscape is going to be beautified once it's all done. Cross sections of the existing buildings, or proposed buildings, I should say. We can come back to it at a later point if you have any further questions, but this shows the garage under, 2.5 stories above. One of the clarifications I do want to make, which was we did have a site plan updated. There was notation in the zoning memo that referred to this building being 3 stories. After looking at it in more detail and having the surveyor confirming the calculations, we do meet the 2/3 requirement, and therefore the basement is a basement, and this is a 2.5 story building. Again, you have heard me say that the height of the building is still about 34, 35 feet under the 36 feet. But I just want to clarify that that's going to be one waiver that we do not need for this project. Here's a plan showing the garage. So you can see the 6 parking spaces. There are 2 for each unit. And the common garage door is where my cursor is down below here. So we did submit as part of our package turning radius plans. Again, if we can come back to these if you have any further questions. We used a mid-size vehicle. It's a Tesla vehicle for this example on how to get in and out of each parking spaces. And then these are the floor plans of the 3 units. The unit sizes are about 2,400 square feet approximately. So these are moderate size units for, I believe, a good small family would be great buyers for these types of units. And these will be condominiums, not rentals. And back to the rendering of the house. And with that, I will stop share. And in terms of history, we have met several times with our neighbors, and some of them are here tonight to speak. And I will stop there. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Let's take it into the committee and hear. Oh, sorry, planning, you're right. Thank you. Yes, planning. Ms. Kemet, I think that's you.
That's correct. Let me just share my screen. So my name is Kat Kemet from the Planning Department. This is petition 155-25 for 3 Newland Street. This is a special permit request to allow 3 single-family attached dwellings. The property consists of a 9,773 square foot parcel on a corner lot in the MR1 district in Auburndale. The site is currently improved with a single family dwelling and has some retaining walls and a bit of a slope on the site. There's a driveway off of Charles Street at the north corner of the property. The area is residential in character with a mix of primarily single and 2 family dwellings. And as Attorney Lee described, it does abut the Massachusetts Turnpike, so it operates as a bit of a dead end in some ways. The petitioner is requesting to tear down the existing dwelling and construct 3 attached single-family dwellings in 2 different buildings. 1 unit will face out on Charles Street and 2 units in a separate building will face out on Newland. The project will have a compliant amount of parking stalls that are located below grade. It requires relief for the proposed use, which is single-family attached. Relief is needed for the dimensions of the lot, which is 9,773 square feet, where a minimum of 15,000 is required, and for lot area per unit, which is 3,258 square feet, where 4,000 square feet is required. It also needs relief for reduced front and side setbacks and the proposed height, which is 3 stories. Additional relief is needed for the driveway, which is within 10 feet of a side lot line, and to allow several retaining walls that are 4 feet in height or greater. When considering this request, the council should consider if the site is an appropriate location for the proposed single-family attached dwellings, if the dwellings as designed will adversely affect the neighborhood, if there will be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, if literal compliance with the city's parking regulations is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location size, with depth or shape of the lot, or that an exception would be in the public interest. If the lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property such that it couldn't be improved without the implementation of retaining walls over 4 feet in height. If the retaining walls over 4 feet in height will adversely impact the neighborhood. And if the retaining walls over 4 feet in height is the minimum structure necessary to allow a property to be reasonably utilized. Overall, the department is not concerned with the proposed use. This is in a residential district with several two-family dwellings nearby, as Attorney Lee mentioned, and staff believe that 3 single-family attached dwellings are compatible with that built environment. The units are split between 2 buildings, with each facing different frontages on the corner lot, so there's a breakup of the massing of the buildings, and it is located opposite the pike, so that mitigates some impact on neighbors, because that is a significant abutter. We did want to note that the configuration of the parking underground appears a bit constrained, and we have suggested a turning template, which the petitioner has since provided. And we've suggested implementing solutions such as convex mirrors to improve visibility in the garage area if that proved an issue. And that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to pull up any plans as the committee requires. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Actually, before we hear from the public, before we take it into committee, let me ask you, did the planning department receive that new recalculation analysis of the height as 2.5 stories, not 3? And if so, do you agree with that? Because you did just mention 3 stories in your report.
We did get something, but it was pretty late in the day. So I think as long as, Attorney Lee is comfortable with that, the committee can kind of not issue that relief if that is the direction they go in. And then they will have to comply with the 2.5 stories.
Thank you. Yeah, we would just like confirmation that planning agrees with that and we don't have to consider that as part of the relief tonight. Is that what you're saying, Ms. Wewell?
Yeah, we
yeah.
do have an email from the chief zoning code official on this. Again, it came in pretty late today. I think she is comfortable that it's 2.5 stories, so we're comfortable.
Great. Thank you very much. We will now see if there are members of the public. I see a hand up on Zoom. Is anyone in the chamber here wanting to speak on this petition? No? Okay. Mr. Gershenfeld. Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. We live diagonally across the street from the unit, and I just want to make 3 comments.
Could you give us your name and address first?
My name
Thanks.
is Joel Gershenfeld. We live at 39A Charles Street. It's a 2-family unit that's diagonally across the street from the current property. And I'm going to make 3 comments, all in support of the proposal. The first is that we like the fact that the design has picked up architectural cues from other buildings on the street with the peaks and other things, so it fits the neighborhood. Second, we like the use of the underground parking that will reduce congestion. Right now, it's a shared driveway between this and the unit next door, and so that will actually improve that. And thirdly, we've attended a couple of meetings with the builder and the attorney, and the neighbor right next door, Max, was concerned about light that might affect their unit. And the architect tilted it you'll see it's now diagonally aligned on the lot in a way that was directly responsive to the Max's concern. And so I also want to say that the process has been one of feeling that we were consulted, listened to, and the design has been adjusted in response to feedback from the neighbors.
Thank you very much. We love hearing that. We encourage that kind of interaction all the time. Any other members of the public like to speak or ask questions on this? I don't see any. If there's anyone there, just raise your hand and I'll come back to you. But we'll take it into committee at this point. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. This is quite an unusual corner of Newton. I urge people to visit sometime. First few questions directed to planning. It's my understanding that Newland Street is a private way. Is that correct?
Ms. Kemet?
I'm not sure about that. I couldn't confirm that. I could look into it though. And
Well, let's, for the purposes of our discussion, let's just assume it's a private way for the moment. Does this affect any analysis regarding this property? The fact that it's going to be built and accessed from a private way?
I don't believe so. I think Attorney Lee can also jump in, or Attorney Temple, but if it is a private way, does the property owner own halfway to the street? Is that correct?
Yeah, I can jump in here, Chair.
Please,
This has
please
no
do.
impact on the zoning analysis.
Okay.
It does mean, though, that the city doesn't plow that street, I believe. So the owners who live on the street need to take care of plowing. Is that correct?
Is that question to me, Chair?
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Temple.
That is technically correct. I believe the city does plow a fair amount of private ways, though it's not required to.
It's just something for the owners to be aware of, perhaps.
So the proposed driveway will be accessed from Newland Street, but it's my understanding that the current access is from Charles Street. Is that correct? This is back to Kat, I guess, or Katie, regarding the change from the current condition to the proposed condition.
yes, the existing curb cut on Charles Street will be closed and they will create a new one on Newland Street.
So I ask this because the traffic on Newland Street is going to go up by a lot. I'm guessing it will at least double, possibly triple on Newland Street. Now, Newland Street is a private way, so it's not the city's responsibility to maintain it. It's the people who live on Newland Street need to maintain it. So that's why I'm asking these questions. It feels like the addition of the stress on Newland Street ought to be considered by everyone who has a Newland Street address. Now, my guess is they're all informed as abutters about this development, but whether they realize what it will mean for their street is an entirely different matter. And I'm wondering, Planning Department, what you think about that.
So I have a map of Newland Street up. It's a pretty, I think, short street, one with 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 properties fronting it. So I don't believe the planning department at this time is concerned with traffic impacts. Residential uses tend to have pretty low trip generations.
Perhaps, Councillor LeBlanc, would you be interested in hearing from Mr. Lee about if the development team has considered this and how they'd like to address it?
I would love to hear whatever he would like to add to this aspect of this development.
Mr. Lee, do you have anything to add to the Question from Counselor Block?
Yes, Chair. So with respect to that particular section of Charles and Newland Street, the site plans that I have from the surveyor notes them being public ways. So that's the information that I have currently. And with respect to traffic, and my experience has always been any type of residential use has a very minimal impact on traffic and trip generations. Typically, putting aside people working from home, if they work, it's once in the morning and once in the evening when they come and go. Otherwise, the neighbors who are probably the best suited to make an assessment or comment about traffic, my understanding is really the Mass DOT projects most recently have been the ones that are generating the traffic. And so hopefully those guys will work fast and get it done. And once they're done, then I think that things will calm down quite a bit. And Professor Gershenfeld will probably be able to speak better than I can on that particular point.
Professor Gershenfeld, even though you have already spoken, you're being called upon to weigh in on this particular aspect as a neighbor.
I'm happy to do so. Newland Street is kind of a U-shaped street. The folks that live on the other end of the street would enter and exit only from their end. I think the people living in this unit would be probably the only ones coming in on that side. So we don't see this as really involving much traffic at all in terms of changing the usage patterns. But as Lawrence says, the real traffic has come with the MassDOT work, which we know is a good thing, and we're glad to see it happen. But it is infinitely more disruptive than anything that would be associated with this use.
Well, thank everyone for those additions. The Mass DOT project will happily be completed soon. And I do understand that a lot of traffic will diminish after that's done. I'm still curious about whether this is a private way or whether it's a public way. And I think it's highly likely that it's a private way. And I appreciate Attorney Lee's comment that his records show that only that it's a public way. Sometimes streets are partly private, partly public. I drove on this street today. You really don't want to drive on this street. I think it's probably safe only at maybe 5 miles an hour. And I appreciate that Mass DOT is bringing trucks and lots of vehicles, but adding 3 units that, the way I look at the site plan, people are going to be not entering from, they're going to be entering from Charles and following Newland around the block to get to the driveway because of the way the driveway is angled. That's going to be the natural way. To enter it the other way will be a very sharp left turn into the driveway. Now, the driveway could be reconfigured perhaps, but right now, the way I look at this, the stress or the traffic pattern is going to take a left from Charles and basically circle the block until it gets to the driveway, which is perfectly fine, except that that road is barely passable right now. And I'm wondering if the petitioner would consider paving this road. You mentioned curbstones at the intersection of Charles and Newland, and that's great improvement. But this whole road is, as a non-engineer, I would say it's in failure. So I'm concerned about that, and concerned that there be some plan to remedy that. maybe others will want to add factual information to this. I'd really appreciate other perspectives on private ways and increasing the use of private ways and how we manage that. Mr. Lee mentioned the turning analysis. I just want to say it looks complicated. This is not my area of expertise, but I'm looking at the turning analysis and putting the six spaces in this underground garage. I appreciate that it's underground and that's an amenity to the neighborhood. But I've just never seen how many turns are going to be necessary. And I'm just concerned about that. So that's all I have to say right now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Block. I'm going to go next to Councillor Leary, whose hand was up, but I want to assure the councillors on Zoom that I see your hands up. I'm going in the order of which people raise their hands and where I'm taking people on the committee first, but I will get to you all. Councillor Leary.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I believe Councillor Lucas will have information that this is a public road and not a private road. Is this listed as Charles Street Extension? Did they change the name of Newland recently? Because initially it was hard to find on Google Maps because it comes up as the Charles Street Extension. And it's Councillor Block, funny with the private roads, I find that many people who live on them or near them like to keep them in bad condition because it slows down traffic so much. They're very effective in that way.
You should take a trip. I don't think that's what's going on.
Okay. Could you bring up the site plan one more time, Mr. Lee? I wasn't quite understanding. I love the idea of the underground driveway. I wasn't quite understanding how building 2, how they negotiated from their car from the street, the public street, to their parking area, to their underground area.
Mr. Lee, is there a diagram showing the interior circulation from the driveway through the garages and how they connect and how one parks in unit 2?
Yep, let me
Or three?
stop share this one, and then I want to pull up the other plan that is better for that purpose. So give me a quick second, please. Okay, so okay, so I think this may be helpful. There's one entryway. This is the garage and a door. The driveway is where my cursor is down below here. So a car enters. And so there's 2 cars in each block, so to speak, or garage, internal garage. So the folks who drive into this space, we can drive straight in. They will need to negotiate several turns in terms of coming back out of the driveway, but it is a single point of entry and exit. And in my conversations with Ms. Kemet, we do agree that having a mirror at the driveway will help improve the safety of folks coming in and out of it. But what we anticipate, and I have done projects with underground garages, is that when a project is built and folks look at the properties and see the garages and so forth, they will say yes or no, in terms of whether they can or can't work with snug space, if you will, on garages and their type of vehicles that they drive. So what happens is the market will dictate, and in terms of garages, I think, the cost benefit analysis as it relates to surface parking and an underground parking having underground parking achieves a lot more in terms of allowing more open space above. And then sort of the cost, if you will, put it in quotes, is that the folks who live here will need to drive smaller cars and that they will need to maneuver a little bit to get in and out. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yes, that is helpful. I do like that you're keeping more open and green space. That's the great thing about underground parking. So are those undersized parking areas though? So people would be coming in with, they wouldn't be driving a very large SUV?
These are full size, 9 by 19 spaces. There's 24 feet, so that's what's required for perpendicular maneuvering space. But the nature of the design of the driveway is a curvature. So we do not anticipate anyone with a large SUV being able to get in and out of this space. You're really talking about mid-sized cars, compact cars that are coming in and out of this space.
Okay. And so is this an all-electric building?
Yes, it will be, correct.
And are they going to be putting in impervious spaces anywhere, like a lot in the driveway?
There's the only sort of since these are underground, the pavement is really just the driveway. So I don't know if anyone from MGD can speak on that component of it in terms of the material for the driveway. Perhaps Mariana or Trevor can speak to that, but we try to minimize the impervious surface.
Okay, if they could speak to that. And then just my last comment was, are there going to be any significant grade changes with the new building?
The grade changes that you hear in terms of retaining walls really pertain to the driveway coming in. So obviously there's going to be walls that support
Right.
the driveway. There will be a outdoor patio area with a short retaining wall that's about 3 feet where my cursor is on this side of the edge, which is noted. But otherwise, that's where the 4 feet or greater is really where the driveway is.
Okay, so this building will not be built up?
No.
on a mountain or anything. Okay,
And the city council has kind of cured that situation and the changing
Right.
of the definition of the average grade. So this complies with the current definition of the average grade calculation of the height and grading.
okay. Thank you. That's all for me right now.
Before we move on, Mr. Lee, I was going to say, could you please keep that diagram of the underground parking garage up for a minute? Because I did have a question for you. I understand it's relatively tight. Can you, with your cursor, show us how those two cars parked in the far area will exit this garage?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to the turning radius plan.
Yeah. I asked you on this plan because at least for me, the turning radius plans were too small to see on the screen and understand. So I wondered if you could have also shown us with your cursor how you expect those two cars to get out.
Okay, so is this a little bit better? Can you see that on your screen?
Yes, thank you for enlarging it.
So it is a little bit tight, as you can see at the end here. So as you come in, you will need to back out and you can kind of see the superimposed images. So there will be not a 3-point turn, probably a 5-point turn. So you'll be backing out and then you would have to angle to the right, back up one more time, angle to the right one more time, and then back up and then come back out this way. So I'm
Okay.
not sure if you will follow that.
Yes, I did. That's what I imagined, and I hoped you had a better answer than that.
Well, it is
Thank you.
tight. It is tight. And like I said, any buyers, and I've done projects and real estate transactions all the time with purchasers, they will be able to dictate whether they can work with this or not. And the good thing about this also is that this is not happening above grade. So to the extent where there is any challenges with snugness of the garage, they will have to work with it. And before they buy it, they will make sure that they can work with it. So
Thank you. We understood that. I just wanted to see I wanted us to see how they would make that maneuver, and it
Sure
is
thing.
perhaps a 5-point turn in the middle of the garage. Next, we have Counselor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. And that was actually one of my questions that I was going to ask. So it looks like a 7 or a 9-point turn, Mr. Lee. I used to live in my parking spot used to be a 5-point turn to exit. So it can be done. Just want to let everyone know. And this is underground, so I don't see how that's going to be a problem that will affect the neighborhood. I do want to address Councilor Block's concern about Newland being a private way. I am on the city's DPW webpage, and it is listed in the PCI index. It isn't very well. It has a rating of a 39, very much to be improved. And then I'm also on the city's road paving schedule for 2025, and Newland Street is on it. It's getting what is called a maintenance overlay. Maybe some folks here know what that means, but we have some folks here who are on public facilities, so you see this a lot. Maybe you can fill this in, but it is being paved, and the city does not pave private roads. Let's see, Mr. Lee, can we get a 3D model of the project from the ground level? Do you have something like that?
Let me see if this satisfies it. Pardon me, give me a second here. Just want to reorient this. These are the elevations. I don't know if that's helpful as well. And the 3D rendering I have.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so I just want to be certain this is what it's, if approved, is this going to be, it's going to present like this?
Yeah, right. Obviously there's some details in terms of the poles, and those are not there, obviously. But in terms of the shape of the building, the design of the building, those are all going to be pretty much what you see, save for some of the variations, of course, colors. This is a computer generated image, so nothing is absolutely for certain. So colors and textures and things like that, those obviously will vary. And it doesn't show all the site conditions currently, obviously, but it's a pretty close resemblance of what it will look like.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions I had was, this is single family attached. It's 3 units and 2 buildings. What is between buildings 1 and 2? I don't think we got that.
It's an open space. Let me see if there's an image where I can show you. So this space, it's actually a see-through. And so if you were to stand on the yard, obviously there'll be a fence, but this is open, so you can actually see below into the garage. The reason for that is because this actually allows more natural light into an otherwise dark space. And then from an energy standpoint, it actually requires less mechanical equipment to condition it. So you're actually making it a little bit less dependent on energy and allowing more natural light and airflow. So that's why one of the reasons why we did it this way.
So if I'm understanding correctly, there's going to be a big hole in the middle of the ground?
So yeah, you can see through it, and there will be fencing to obviously for safety purposes, but that's the design, correct?
Yeah, it's a giant hole in the ground, right?
Is it open from the top, Mr. Lee? Like you can look down into it and rain and snow will be falling in that driving space between the 2 garages?
That is correct.
So it's the entire area in between the 2 homes is going to be a giant hole.
Let me just zoom in on that.
I've not seen this before in my 4+ years on this committee. That's all.
Yep. So here you can see it says open to below. And so you can, if you were to stand here on the yard or patio, you can see below.
Okay, I I have not seen this before. I don't know if anyone here has seen a project like this before. There's going to be fences and walls to prevent people from falling in, yes?
Absolutely.
I hope so.
We would not get our building permit nor get any sign-offs from ISD without otherwise.
Yeah, or this committee. How high is that wall or fence going to be?
I'm sorry?
How high is that wall or fence going to be?
I'm gonna have to defer to MGD. Trevor, do you happen to have that information handy?
Sorry, I wasn't able to mute myself. Trevor O'Leary from MGD Plus. So the wall will come up just to grade, and then we'll have a 3-foot fence or a 3-foot railing at the top of it.
So a 3-foot wall?
The wall will come up to grade, and
What does
then
that mean?
so up to the grass level around on either side.
Which
And
would
then
be
we'll
how high? How high would that be, Mr. O'Leary?
So that wall would be about 9 feet tall because it's going to go down to the base of the garage level.
So if I'm standing in the yard, there will be a 9-foot wall with a 3-foot
No.
fence.
If you're standing in the yard, you'll be able to see a 3-foot fence or a 3-foot railing. If you're standing in the lower level in the basement or the garage level, you would see a 9-foot wall and a 3-foot fence.
No, that's not what I'm getting at. If I'm standing in the yard, Mr. Lee, can you put your cursor?
Right here?
Right there. Yes. If I'm standing there, how high is that wall going to be?
It will be flush with the grade. You're going to have a 3-foot railing.
So there is no wall.
There's
Correct.
no wall.
The wall does not extend above the ground level, Counselor Lucas. So if you're standing there, what Trevor is saying, he's referring to the wall is the wall for the basement. That basically is the foundation wall. And it
Correct.
doesn't go above where you're standing. So if you're standing there, the wall is literally at your feet.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm sorry. Will there be a fence above grade?
Correct.
Yes. Yes.
Is it a chain link fence? Is it a wooden fence? What are we talking about?
It will be a composite railing.
That's 3 feet high.
Correct.
Can you not make that taller?
We can discuss with our clients and look at making that taller. 3 feet would be what's required by building code, and what would be required for any deck railing, anything that's above 3 feet in height.
Okay, well, I'm going to recommend that we do more than what's required. I see that as a tremendous safety hazard, having a 3-foot railing or a fence. If you're standing in
So
the
I
yard
guess-
and you could fall down into the garage, that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, so the only thing I would say on that would just be any standard deck that you'd have. So both in residential buildings and commercial buildings, that people would use. The 3 foot is a standard railing that would be provided for that deck.
I understand that
be,
3 foot is
above grade.
required. I'm asking, can you do something more than what's required? It is a safety issue. I see that as a safety issue.
So I
Do
think,
you have a rendering of what this would look like?
if I may, I think Albert is the client who has raised his hand. I think he can get directly to the source and answer that question.
Oh, Albert is on this team?
Yes, he
Great.
is. Yep.
Let's hear and see something from Albert about what this situation is going to look like.
Hi, how are you? Albert Azatians with the development team. The railing fence, we have no problem going 42 inches or doing a 6-foot fence. I think that keeping it a little lower rather than doing, or we can do a 5-foot metal fence that comes across that you could actually see from one end to the other rather than blocking it off with a taller fence. We have no problem, doing something taller.
Okay, thank you.
Albert, do you have access to an image of what this would look like? Or Mr. O'Leary?
I don't.
A photo, something, a rendering?
I don't, but it would look very similar to like any metal wrought iron fence that you would see driving through Newton.
Top of a 9-foot concrete wall. I'm hearing that some of us are having difficulty picturing this, which is why I'm asking. I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding in the chamber. So if someone on your team could figure out how to show us what this is going to look like, it would be much appreciated. Councilor Lucas, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I want to move on from this. I'm sure others will chime in. The other thing I just want to say is, this is a big set of townhomes, 3 of them. I'm okay with the 3 units here. It's the last house on a dead-end street that abuts the Mass Pike. If you're going to put an oversized townhome, this is the place where it would go. My only other outstanding issue is, and Mr. Lee, I think you know where I'm going to go with this, is your lot coverage is at 24.6. The maximum is 25. So just if this project is approved as it's being proposed today, just make sure you don't go over that 25% because you know what happens. That's all.
Certainly do.
Okay, thank you. Also, Councilor Lucas, Councilor Lobovitz, and then Councilor Laredo, and then Councilor Downs, if I think she's taken her hand down. So we'll still go in this order. Councilor Lobovitz, you're next.
So I just want a further elaboration on the pervious issue. Can you review the plan for the patios in terms of the surface? You mentioned the driveway, which we hope will be addressed, but there's also the patios, so. Anybody?
Somebody from the design team to address the question about pervious surfaces?
Yes,
Mr. O'Leary or who?
I'm pulling up, Chair, the landscape plan here.
Sorry, I was muted again.
So Trevor, I'll let you narrate in terms of the outdoor features.
Sure. So as you can see, if you look on the landscape plan here, where it's indicated with the number 6, all of the patios are going to be permeable pavers for each of these spaces. The only space that we'll have that will be impervious will be the asphalt driveway, which just due to the contour of the slope is going to hold up better with a standard asphalt.
Thank you. And I have one more comment about the height of the fence. I imagine that some of the people living here will have children. I'm just guessing. And that's my biggest concern. I doubt if an adult would fall over or climb over a 3-foot fence, but I think we have to be mindful of safety in relationship to children who are prone to climbing over whatever's in front of them. So I completely agree with people who have a safety concern about this, and I think it has to be higher, and it has to be easily scalable, I would say. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not an expert on fencing, but I would recommend that you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lobovitz. Is that everything for you? Okay, Councilor Laredo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, this is really pretty much close to a dead-end street or virtually like it. So I don't have any concerns about traffic here. And I do agree that adding a couple of units really does not do much for traffic concerns, particularly here. There's just only a handful of cars that are going to go in and out. But I do have 2 questions. One, why this shaft in the middle of the property to begin with? I mean, is it because you're concerned the garage will be too dark?
So I think the original thought on it was just to provide airflow in there, to provide, just a little bit more light into the space. I think that looking at it, we did look at an option of covering it as well. And I think at this point, if it's going to make things easier for this process, we would be open to covering that space.
I have to say, I'm not particularly worried about light in a garage that's storing cars. And you could actually put some green space above that, which would be good. You'd eliminate the safety issue. I think Council Lobovitz and Lucas are 100% correct on that. Is there any way to expand the footprint underground a little bit so you can increase the turning radii? I do appreciate what Attorney Lee said regarding that, condo owners kind of figure it out. And, I get that, but if we could make it even a little bit easier, that might be helpful. I'm going to suggest, Madam Chair, that if they're going to make a change like they're proposing, I don't think we can just vote it out tonight. And that would be my suggestion. And I do think that would be a good change. But otherwise, I actually think this is a good project if you make some improvements there. Thanks.
Thank you, President Laredo. We have a couple of counselors with their hands up for the second time. And before I come back to you, I have kept a list of you. We're going to go to Councilor Farrell, who hasn't spoken yet, and Councilor Krinsman. We're very much still appreciating your patience virtually. We'll come to you hopefully next. Councilor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. I say what President Laredo said. I think it's a pretty good project, but I know I'm shrinking. I've lost 2.5 inches, but even at that, standing at a 3-foot railing, it doesn't even come up to my waist. And I just would encourage you to either raise that railing and make it impossible for kids to climb it, or close that gap of a 9-foot fall if you go over the railing. But I like the project too. I just think that's really not a sound idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Farrell. Councilor Krinsman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the thoughtfulness with which the committee has approached this. Want to say that I am very appreciative of the fact that the petitioners came to the neighbors, as I think you heard in testimony earlier, had 2, maybe 3 meetings. I know I was able to join 2 of them, but I think there was a 3rd meeting that I wasn't able to join. They were highly responsive to some concerns that were raised by neighbors. You're not hearing testimony or any opposition from neighbors on this because I think it's a well thought out project and a project that, as you've heard from folks this evening, makes sense for this area. So I would encourage the committee to support it. I hear the concerns about a hazard there, but I don't think that's something that can't be easily overcome. And as I said, these petitioners have demonstrated a strong willingness to work with both neighbors and the community to overcome any obstacles. So again, I would encourage support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Krinsman. Councilor Maliki.
Thank you. So Councilor Lucas provided the information I was going to about the PCI paving schedule. And you might want to coordinate with the city. If you're going to be putting in new curbs, you probably don't want to have to replace pavement that the street just paved this year. But my questions had to do with kind of fire safety. This came up with another project, and I would like to understand, which I don't, the requirements for egress from a 3rd floor when you have 3rd floor bedrooms, which this appears to. The 3rd floor rooms are designated playroom/bedroom. And I don't know what that is. Do you need more than one way out going down the interior stairway? And also, since you're having underground parking, I always worry about the rare but very hard to put out electric vehicle fires, and what would be the sort of fire suppression system for the garage, and would the house itself have sprinklers by any chance? And also, one more question, unrelated, just wondering the reason for that sort of S-shaped driveway.
Sure. So just to answer the bedrooms in the attic. So by code, any bedrooms in an attic need both a staircase to leave, which is the main interior staircase, and then emergency and escape rescue openings, which are the windows. So this space would meet the building code for a bedroom in that attic level. It would be pretty typical to any other bedroom you'd see throughout Newton. In regards to fire suppression, we have had conversations with the fire department, and while we have not gotten a final determination on this, we would be looking at putting sprinklers in the garage area. With this building being 3 units, we will be looking at a residential sprinkler system as well in this building.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and the driveway, that's maybe for somebody else.
Yeah, and on the driveway, so with looking at the driveway, in order to get the vehicles down into the basement level due to the topography of the lot slopes down, left to right, I guess, if you're looking from Newland Street. So the right side of the lot is the lowest point, which allows us to minimize the slope of the ramp as much as possible. And the curve to it actually gives just more length to that ramp, which allows us to have a reasonable slope for cars to come down, which is going to assist with maneuverability.
Okay, and I agree with others, the concern about the railing. I don't like
Yep.
seeing even 4-foot railings in student centers because it's just
Sure.
like a,
So just talking with a client here on this, I think he's open to covering that. We'll do it. We can do it with green space. We can cover it with a metal deck system, and provide planting on top of that.
great. Okay, thank you.
All set, Counselor Maliki? Counselor Downs? Did you still have your hand up?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to comment, but it's just, and so I'll keep it very brief. I don't see a problem with egress and ingress from the driveway here, or much in the way of traffic on what is basically almost a dead end street, except it's a U. We have some of those in Woburn. They work fine. More people in Newton to pay taxes will help us get the money we need to afford to repave some of our really low PCI streets like this one and keep them maintained. I think the residents will be able to handle the driveway. It's in walking distance to 2 great parks and eventually should have a nice walking trail to Riverside Station. I think it'll be a great neighborhood for kids. But I think otherwise it's an ingenious design. I like the way it fits into the neighborhood. I know the neighborhood pretty well. I have friends down there and I've been down to that park on the Riverside advocating for getting that bridge replaced over to the other side of the river and the other park on the other side. I think it's a good project. I'm going to support it.
Thank you, Counselor Downs. Everyone has spoken once. I see that Counselor Block and Larry had raised your hands again. Do you want to speak again? And Lobovitz, do you want to speak again? Counselor Block will go Block, Leary, Lobovitz.
I wanted to pick up on what Counselor Lucas had identified regarding the public way, private way distinction. The naming of the streets in this particular area, as Counselor Leary pointed out, is a bit confusing. The part of the roadway that's called Charles Street Extension on a map just looks like it's part of the loop that's Newland Street. So Newland Street itself may be a public way, but the Charles Street Extension appears to be the private way. And the Charles Street Extension is the logical path for these residents to access their driveway because of the way the driveway is configured. It would be possible to exit Charles Street directly onto Newland, but there would be a very sharp left turn into the driveway. So the natural path is to go down the Charles Street Extension, which is a private way, which is badly maintained at the moment. Perhaps it's the wishes of the people the 3 or 4 units who live on there. I'd be shocked, however, if it really was, because this is a road that doesn't lead anywhere. This is not a cut-through concern for the people who live in this very attractive corner of Auburndale. And I'm just concerned about that. The quantity of the traffic may be small, but the percentage increase is going to be significant. And I don't think we should lose sight of that. So, well, I realize that the private way, public way issue is maybe at best tangential to all of this, but it seems like an opportunity to try and rationalize this a little bit, especially since the people who live on Newland Street are going to have a legal right to go down this private way, and they almost certainly will, utilize it and contribute to its condition, but they won't be required, as best I understand, to contribute to the maintenance because their address is on Newland Street. So what do we do about this? It seems like we ought to have a strategy, but maybe they voluntarily join the private Charles Street Extension Way and shoulder a proportional share of the cost of maintenance. I don't know. That might be one way to think about this. I just wanted to make a comment on Attorney Lee's analysis of the turning radius in the basement. I appreciate that the market, up to a point, will solve this problem or deal with the problem. But if the way the market deals with it is that people choose not to park their car in the garage because it's challenging to get out of the garage, and they don't want to do 5 or 7-point turns, and they start parking on the street a lot more than they do now, then it does become a neighborhood issue. It's not an issue worth, voting against this project, but I do think it's an issue worth considering. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Mr. Lee, Lawrence Lee, have you given some thought to that issue about public way, private way entrance, or is that something that your team would like to think about for later before we move on to the next person?
No, so I think Councillor Lucas was, I thought answered the question adequately. And so if it's a public way and it's slated to be repaired, and then we'll let the city do what they're supposed to for public ways. As it relates to, I just want to make it very clear in terms of at least taking the one issue off the table, which is our client, and Trevor had touched upon this, is his agreement to cover that open area. So I want to make that very clear that we will be covering that area so that that's no longer an open space.
In between the two garages, you mean?
Correct.
That solves
So that's
the
no
one question I was
longer a
holding to
concern.
that.
No
Okay.
longer a concern.
I won't ask my question about that. But Councillor Block's point wasn't about Newland being public or private. It was that Charles, or the Charles Street Extension, which is the other side of your property where you would be doing curbing and a sidewalk, as I heard, correct?
Yeah,
Or
so
not?
the Charles Street Extension is actually on the other side, and Newland is the frontage that we have. So we have Charles Street and Newland Street that fronts our property.
Right. So he's saying that Charles Street, though, is a public way.
The Charles Street Extension, there's
Yes, the Charles Street Extension is a public way.
that's the private.
Well, that's a private way. Sorry, I have it backwards. That's a private way. So how would your new owners, is that just going to be a condo association determination, how to contribute to the maintenance of that side of things, the paving or plowing or whatever?
If we have legal rights to that, which basically requires us to abut the private way, then we would own a portion of that. If we are actually a owner of the private way, then in that case, we would be contributing our fair share towards the repairs, maintenance, etc. But if we are not, which I don't believe we are only fronting on public ways, then we really don't have any obligation, or really, I wouldn't want to butt into their business in terms of those folks and their property rights. in a private way.
Okay, so we don't have a clear determination of that tonight. Let's move on. Counselor Block, are you all set with that?
Well, I will be prepared to make a motion to hold to deal with some of these, but I'm okay for now with our discussion.
We will wrap up with a few things for them to be remembering and thinking about, and that's one of them. Counselor Leary?
I think my questions have been addressed. I did have, I was now a little bit more confused about the private way and the public way. It turns out that Charles Gate Extension is a private way and Newgate and the other street, Newland, is a public way. And I'm very happy to hear that they're going to enclose the 9-foot hole in the ground. I was concerned about having a child there because they climb. I had a little boy who's now much bigger, but they get into a lot of trouble. So I'm glad to hear that. And I would like you to reconsider some pervious material on the driveway, instead of just all blacktop on the sides or something like that. It just also really takes the whole beauty of the property when you just have plain blacktop as well. But otherwise, I do think this is a really nice project. There's a lot to like with it. I look forward to voting for it soon.
Well, there is even pervious asphalt.
Sorry.
There is even pervious asphalt, which could be.
Yes.
A smooth surface that may accomplish what they're looking for. But I do believe we're going to have a motion to hold. So these are going to be some items for them to continue thinking and answering questions on. Councillor Lobovitz, I think, is our last counselor for the night.
So I'm also pleased that the whole will be covered. If it weren't, I do have a question though, if it weren't, just for future reference, how do you deal with a snowstorm that, especially in such a closed parking area? How do you get rid of a lot of snow that might, and for that matter, rain that would go into the parking basement area?
So in that space, I mean, the snow would have to be removed in that 10-foot section between the two buildings. Ways to do that would be looking at just a heat strip in the pavement that would omit the accumulation of snow, and then we'd be putting drainage down there.
Okay. I just want to clarify one thing. If we make a condition on covering that area, could that close? Do we need to prolong this if everybody agrees that that is the main thing, or is there a reason to hold it because we want to see the actual design? I'm not sure what the purpose of a hold at this point, because if the developer or petitioner has agreed to cover that over in an adequate way, that would be reviewed by, engineering as a condition, is that adequate? Or are there other changes that people feel we still need to explore further and would justify a hold? Because I'm ready to vote for this if an engineer can approve that covering. Thank you.
Conditional on engineering review. I was going to wrap up with those same questions. We have a couple of things that haven't been totally resolved that have been raised. And for me, I'm not sure they're worthy of a hold, but we've already had 2 counselors talk about wanting to hold it. So I'd like to hear from the committee about that. The things that are a little open-ended, I would say, are that enclosure, the height and material and look, appearance, construction method of the railing above the wall, and if that driveway can be some kind of a pervious surface. If all of those can be attended to, I also would be happy to move forward with it. But I'd like to hear, it was President Laredo and Councilor Block who both indicated that they would make motions to hold.
Madam Chair, we're going to need an accurate site plan to approve this at full council. You're going to need it properly done. My suggestion, I don't want to delay this petitioner. I really don't. My suggestion is if we can put this on a meeting promptly, could we even get back to it? And we meet again in what, 2 weeks, I think?
The 17th.
Could we just add it to the docket on the 17th? Hopefully they'll get it done by then. We could act quickly and then it gets approved at the first week in July. I realize that's a bit of a delay for the petitioner. I do think we do our work better if we actually see everything in final form. And there are a few things here I think we should just make sure they're covered properly.
There we'll have to check this again with the clerk. To the best of my knowledge, the 17th agenda, which is our next meeting, could squeeze something in as long as we don't go on and on and on about it. If we have a relatively concise discussion, just trying to wrap these issues up, I think we could do it on the 17th.
Madam Chair, you can tell us all to be quiet and move on.
Well, we have to be thorough, and that's why I always balance with that. Lawrence Lee, do you think, and Trevor, do you think you would be able to come back with us with definitive solutions to these points on the 17th?
I think we can actually do that sooner. What I was actually going to suggest, and I am going to be before you on other matters on the 17th, so I think you may have a full docket that night. Given the level and the issues, quote unquote, that we're talking about, I think a lot of those can really be resolved with a quick conversation with John Dagley and engineering, which can happen this week. Perhaps you could give us some guidance, or if you would have voted out tonight with some guidance for us to resolve the outstanding questions that are really all engineering related. If they don't see any issues with the changes that are being suggested, if I could ask for a vote tonight, take it off the plate so that you can vote on a full site plan. I think the next hearing would be the 16th. I'm looking at the calendar, the full council on the 16th. So certainly we can get all that signed off or agreed to with engineering department before then. And by the time we get to the 16th, you will have a good site plan to vote on.
We hear that that's your request. I'm not sure that that's going to fly with the committee. Let's continue to have a quick conversation. Councilor Downs, your hand is up again.
Yeah, I'm just going to weigh in on this question. Our next council meeting we actually have 2 land use meetings before our next council meeting after the 16th. We have one on the 17th. We also have one on the 8th of July, and then we don't have council until the 14th because of the July 4th weekend. I agree with Councilor Lubovitz. I'm ready to vote this out, and if we can, if we can have plans before our council meeting on the 16th, I'm willing to review those and maybe have a quick affirming vote that we have what we need before we go to council at 7:45.
Councilor Block.
I am not ready to let go of the issue about private way, public way, and the interplay between them. I want to talk to planning and legal about that. I think the petitioner should be interested in that. That's the future residents of this development who are almost certainly going to be regularly using this private way. So I'm not ready. I'm ready to make a motion to hold. Thank you, Chair.
Did you just make a motion to hold?
I did just make that motion to hold. Thank you. Worded poorly, but that's the intent.
Okay. We do have a motion before us. I assume that motion, at least for now, if that prevails, is going to include closing the public hearing. Separate motion or not?
I thought.
Well, if you're going to hold, then we'd keep it open.
That's
okay.
I don't, but I appreciate the commentary about the interests of speed and promptness and all the rest. If this committee, well, let's just hold it, and I think we'll be able to get through with it pretty rapidly at our next meeting.
Let's take a vote on the motion that's before us to hold. Let's do a roll call vote on that.
Councilor Block,
Aye.
Councilor Downs,
No.
Counselor Farrell,
No.
Counselor Kelly,
What?
No.
Counselor Leary,
No.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Yes.
You want to hold.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo,
Aye.
4-4.
Doesn't pass. It's a tie. Okay.
Chair, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilor Lucas.
Okay, well, I don't know what we're gonna do now. Someone will have to make the motion, I guess, to approve. It is my intention to vote against this. I do not, I'm not gonna vote for a site plan that has a hole in the ground. So that is my reason for voting no, if there is a motion.
Would anyone like to make a motion? Councilor Leary.
Could I make a motion that it's subject to second call? I mean, we didn't specifically say that, but that would make sure that we get the information that we need, including the information about the private way. And if we don't have it, then, we could hold it. But that's the only compromise. I'm trying to get a compromise here because I also don't want to hold it up unnecessarily, but I want to make sure everyone's comfortable with the information.
That's a thought. President Laredo, yes?
So look, my preference would be to have, this is not a minor change that we're talking about, okay? This is a relatively significant change in the interior of the site. With that said, I don't want to delay this. I don't want this to sit here in limbo. Can I ask the petitioner's counsel, are you going to be able to get everything ready for us by the 16th?
Yes.
Okay, not just the 16th, but by the Friday packet, the week before, are you going to have everything ready for us and all our questions answered?
We will get everything started tomorrow. As soon as tomorrow, we will get cracking on this.
Including a new site plan design?
New site plan to show the coverage of the space. And then we will get questions answered by the engineering department as it relates to the private way, public road, etc., the permeable pavers. MGD is here. They'll be involved in the process, and Edmund Spruhan will be able to help.
I guess then I'm persuaded that we could do it subject to second call with a caveat that if it's not ready on the 16th, you can certainly move to recommit it that night, take it up on the 17th next day. Although I don't know if we can do that because of a lack of notice. We also could, if need be, I don't like this, but if need be, take it up before our meeting on the 14th of July too. I'm hopeful we don't get there, Mr. Lee, but just want to give you that. If you're not ready, you run a risk that you're going to be delayed to August, just so you're clear about that. Okay?
And just to clarify, Mr. Lee and team, the materials need to be in before 4 p.m. on Friday, the 13th to be
That's
available
correct.
to us for the 16th.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the one taking the risk here. So if you're comfortable with that, I am comfortable with taking up Councilor Leary's suggestion.
So I have made
Okay.
that motion.
We have a new motion on the floor. Should we keep the public hearing open till then? We should close the public hearing, take this up, subject to second call on the 16th. The motion would be to approve subject to second call and to close the public hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay. We have that motion on the floor. Let's all vote, just vote verbally.
I have a comment I'd like to state something about this
Okay.
motion that we're voting on. Thank you.
Well, I was going to do the public hearing first.
Well,
but Go ahead.
we can do that. Sure. Let's.
Okay, all in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
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 No one is opposed, so the public hearing is closed. Counselor Block.
The way I think about this private way, public way interplay is we are required to make a determination regarding whether something is going to have a negative impact on the neighborhood. The way this development is located and the way the driveway is designed, the natural path is going to be for the traffic for these 3 units to go down the private way, the Charles Street extension, and to at least double the amount of traffic on that stretch. Now, is that going to go from 2 cars a day to 4 cars a day? Well, we don't have to belabor that.
We've heard you on that.
But I take that very seriously. there's nothing wrong with this. This design is a fine design. And as several people said, well, you're facing the pike at a near dead end, but it isn't actually a dead end. It's a loop. And this loop is going to greatly increase the usage on the private way.
Yes.
And I would like the petitioner to think about, Mr. Lee may be legally correct. The address is on a public way and Newland Street is a public way and Charles Street, not Charles Street Extension, but Charles Street is a public way. So they could enter that way, but they're not going to. They're not going to because of the way this driveway is designed, the way the units are configured on this lot. And that's what I want to see resolved. And I would like if we're gonna put this through to second call, I would like a condition. I would like a condition that specifies. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. But I think that we need to come up with an answer. Otherwise, I think it's going to have a negative impact on the neighborhood, and I'll have to vote against this.
Okay.
And I don't want to vote against this.
I think you've made your case very clearly to us here tonight, and the petitioner hears it, and we'll see what they come back with, and we'll see what happens on the 16th. That's the best we can do. I don't believe they're going to change the layout of where the driveway entrance is or the shape or configuration of the driveway, though maybe after listening to us, they might.
Well, nor am I asking for that. The issue is much more their participation in the private way maintenance than it is that this should be redesigned because they are going to be users of that private way.
Right. Okay, I think they've heard that too. Let's vote on the motion before us and move on to the next item. Edie.
Counselor Block,
No.
Hold on, we need to see a council order.
Oh, yes, we do. Thank you. So glad I have a vice chair.
All right, here are the findings. 1, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed single-family attached dwellings with reduced lot area, reduced front and side setbacks, and the other reliefs that were discussed because the neighborhood is comprised of 2 family uses, and this is one of the larger lots in the neighborhood and can support 3 units. 2, the proposed dwellings will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the neighborhood includes other residential structures on smaller lots with reduced setbacks. 3, there will not be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because all parking will be contained on site. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. Literal compliance with the city's parking regulations is impracticable due to the location of the site, which is constrained by its location on a corner lot and subject to 2 front setbacks. The lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property, such that it could not be improved without the implementation of the retaining walls over 4 feet because the site is not flat. The proposed retaining walls over 4 feet will not adversely impact adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the public because other dwellings nearby also feature retaining walls. And the proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height is the minimum structure necessary to allow a property to be reasonably utilized because the site has uneven grading. And for conditions, we have our standard conditions referencing the site plan and architectural plans. An operations and maintenance plan will be required. Pest and rodent activity remediation will be required. A construction management plan will be required. And for the issuance of a building permit, planning will review again. We'll require the O&M plan, the construction management plan, and evidence of the pest control report. For final occupancy, we'll require some statements from professionals certifying compliance with the plan referencing, final plans, a statement from a registered landscape architect, and the approval of engineering and the planning department. And that is the conclusion for that section.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Now we will take a vote.
Counselor Block,
No.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly. Aye. Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
No.
President Laredo.
Aye.
5-2. Nope, 6-2.
6-2.
2 approved.
Okay, on to our last item.
Madam Chair, just a reminder that they would change the language from the 3 stories that was up there. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
hope planning, I'm sure, cut that. Our next and last item for the night is number 156-25, request to allow ground floor residential use to allow 3 stories and to exceed FAR and associated parking waivers at 1062 Beacon Street. Mr. Lee, I think this one is also you.
Yes, it is. For the record, again, thank you, Chair Lawrence Lee, on behalf of the petitioner. MGD also, once again, is the design team for this project. And with your permission, I'd like to share my screen, please.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. So we're in a different part of town here. We are at Four Corners. So it's a very beautiful area. 1062 Beacon, right next to Whole Foods. We're in the business district. We have 6,600 square feet of land. Our parcel, as you can see down in the later slides, is a very unique parcel that is really used in conjunction with Whole Foods at the moment. And we are also sandwiched by the 2 aqueducts, the Cochituate Aqueduct and the Sudbury Aqueduct. So what we're looking to do here is replace the existing house, which was found to be not preferably preserved by the Historical Commission, with a 4-unit residential building. There'll be parking within the first level. It will be 36 feet. The unit sizes are all about 22,000 square feet or less or under. So these are modest size apartment type style units with elevator access. They are 3 bedrooms. And I'll show you the plans down the road. Here, this is what I'm talking about in terms of the site really sitting on almost like an island of itself. So the green spaces here, that's the Sudbury Aqueduct. This on the left side is the Cochituate Aqueduct. Whole Foods is this 916 Walnut Street. As you can see, this really is the business zoned parcel. So it's almost like an extension of the Whole Foods parcel. You'll see down the road that a corner here, a triangular piece of our property, is actually being used by Whole Foods as a right-of-way. That's the driveway to Beacon Street. This is the aerial photograph of the property. As you can see, this is the building right now. Will be replaced by the new building that we're talking about. And you can see that we're right up against the parking lot of Whole Foods. The Sudbury Aqueduct is right to our easterly side of the property. Here's a rendering of what the building will look like. The garage access will be from Beacon Street. This is that driveway that leads to a property at 1058 Beacon. And on the right-hand side of this is the Whole Foods parking lot. Here's another image of the building. And I can come back to any of these down the road. Here's another image of the building as it is superimposed of an aerial photograph. So Four Corners, as you know, is a very mixed use area. So we have commercial spaces, multifamilies, condominiums. So we're all very familiar with this property, with this area. Our building is right here at where my cursor is. And that's, again, is superimposed with a computer image. So breaking down the uniqueness of this site, as I said earlier, we are sandwiched by the two aqueducts. So the way we try to illustrate this is this triangular piece, which is also right here, is actually an easement being used by Whole Foods. So part of that driveway in and out of their property is over this little triangular piece. This triangular piece, even though if you were standing on the street, looks like it's part of our property, but actually is not. It belongs to the state, the MWRA. It's being used as lawn at the moment. And for those who are familiar with the Sudbury Aqueduct, there's a little walking path here. There's a driveway that leads between this property and some other residential properties to our right-hand side here, to the easterly side. And as I mentioned earlier, 1058 Beacon is out back, which is a two-family house. This is an interior layout of the first floor. Cursor on the left side here is the driveway into the first level. It's open, so it's not an enclosed wall. So if you were to walk by, there will be landscape decorative barriers that you can see through the garage into these parking spaces. One of the waivers here is a one spot that is undersized, so to speak. All the others are 9x19 spaces. This is the one where we obviously expect, kind of like the last petition, we do expect folks who are here to have smaller mid-sized vehicles. Otherwise, they are not going to be able to fit one of those large Ford pickup trucks, as an example. Turning radius plans that we've provided as well. We can come back to those if you need to. There are a couple of images of different parking spaces. Second floor of the building, elevator access to each floor. Again, the first floor is the parking level. Second floor is 2 units. So you have 1 unit here, 1 unit here. And then as we go to the third floor, there's another unit on this side and another unit over here. So those are really mirror images with some roof access and roof decks, some outdoor space for the folks to use. Here we have some elevations. This is the front elevation from Beacon Street, 2D modeling. And this is the view from the driveway, the common driveway, shared driveway with 1058 Beacon.
Mr. Lee, can you make this image bigger for us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Would
That's
you like
better.
for me to go backwards a little bit here?
No, I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So here's the rear elevation. This faces Whole Foods. And this side also faces Whole Foods. Okay. So as I said, this site is very unique. The landscaping here is really on MWRA land. We are not allowed to plant things on their property. There's something called an 8M permit that is required whenever we're building near or on MWRA land. We've already obtained that from the MWRA. So to the extent that we are permitted to add grass and open space on their property, I think typically they just leave, if it's low bushes and steep, shallow rooted bushes and grass, those they are typically fine with. But anything beyond that, if you're building any structures, any deep rooted plantings, you really do need to get their permission first. So this is the last couple of images that you, in terms of the property, and I'll be happy to share any one of those again and go back to it if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's hear from planning.
Good evening. I'll share my screen. This is Kat Kemen again from the Planning Department. This is petition 156-25, a special permit for 1062 Beacon Street. As we heard a little bit about, this property is fairly unique. It's in the Four Corners neighborhood. It's improved with a single family dwelling. The property is irregularly shaped with a narrow frontage of 40 feet that widens at the rear. It abuts the two aqueducts and the Whole Foods parking lot and Whole Foods building. The area has a mix of zoning districts, including BU1 directly to the south, single residence 2 to the north and east, and a combination of business use 2 and multi-residence uses to the west. And there is that commercial area north and west of the site. The petitioners proposed to demolish the existing dwelling and construct an 8,868 square foot multifamily dwelling with 4 units. The proposed development requires special permit relief for a ground floor residential use in the business district to allow 3 stories, to allow a floor area ratio of 1.34, where up to 1 is allowed by right and up to 1.5 is allowed by special permit. And it also needs dimensional relief for 1 parking stall, which is smaller than what is required in the ordinance. When reviewing this request, the council should consider if the site is an appropriate location for the proposed multifamily dwelling, if the multifamily dwelling as developed and operated will adversely affect the neighborhood, if there will be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, if the proposed floor area ratio of 1.34 is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, and if literal compliance with the parking regulations are impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or that an exception would be in the interest of the public. Overall, staff believe the proposed use is appropriate for the area. The site is located in an area that has a mix of commercial and residential uses, including several residences that are 3 units, and it's near amenities, including the Whole Foods and public transit options. The area has other residential buildings that do not feature retail uses on the ground floor, and so that's pretty typical for the area. We do want to note that at 35.8 feet tall and with an FAR of 1.34, the project appears to be somewhat larger in size and scale to other residential buildings nearby, so the petitioner might consider reducing the footprint or massing to come closer to compliance for what is allowed by right in terms of the floor area ratio. And we are happy to pull up any plans to look at with the committee on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Are there members of the public come to the microphone? And if you're online, raise your virtual hand. Can you make sure that's on?
Is it on?
Yes. Just give us your name and address, please.
My name's Lindsay Golden. I live at 19 Garland, right across the way from 1062 Beacon. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lee, and folks for reviewing this dwelling. I'm coming to support approving this permit. I think it's a very good example of the type of building that we in Newton need to be constructing. Relatively small, family-friendly buildings. I think that's important for city budget, for the city character, for our long-term health, and for climate goals. So as a neighbor, I'm excited to see this built, and I'm looking forward to welcoming the new residents to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Golden. Next, sir, would you like to come up? Yes, come to the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Alberto Cardenas, and I live at 1050 Beacon Street, which is 2 houses east of the subject property. I cannot support the project in its current form because I think it is way too much building on a very special, very limited constrained site. You can point it out, it's constrained by the 2 aqueducts, constrained by easements, which reduce the effective area, usable area of the site from 6,000 odd square feet to perhaps 5,000 square feet, which is half of what the business use minimum is of 10,000 square feet. And the developer wants to put, as you know, 4 units for a total of 8,600 some square feet, which would yield really an effective FAR if you figure usable amount of site of about 1.8, very high. The result of this is that the building typology that's proposed is very foreign to the residential typology of Newton in general. You don't see houses with first floor all occupied basically by parking and then your residential space above that. You don't see houses with practically no setbacks. The only real setback for this site is the front yard, which is mostly a driveway. And you don't see, residential properties that have no usable ground floor area. If you're going to have 12 bedrooms, how many children are you going to have in this unit? Where are they going to play? Where are they going to hang out? Are there elderly people? Where are they going to go out to have some sun, maybe cultivate some flowers or whatever? It is far into the typology of the nature of residential life in Newton to have residential buildings with no ground floor usable space. Also, I think that and also, as I mentioned before, the typology of having practically the whole the first floor parking and then residential above. Another issue I think is an error in the design is that they're creating a new curb cut for this building rather than using the existing curb cut, which exists right to the east that the current single-family houses use for years and years. And that would alleviate the conflicts of coming in and out of driveways on Beacon Street, which is an extremely busy street. I know I've lived there for 30-some years. So all in all, I think that I would support a smaller footprint, a smaller amount of building on the property. A two-family would be perfectly financially feasible, given the current going market rate of $600 or $700 a square foot for residential property. Perhaps even a three-family building with smaller units. 2,000 square feet for an apartment is big. I am a retired architect. I specialize in affordable multifamily units, and for us, 1,100 square feet for a three-bedroom was tight, but 1,200, 1,300 was fine. These, I think, are oversized. They don't need to be that big. And unfortunately, I can't support it in its current state. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chamber wanting to speak on this? Come to the microphone. Jane Franz, I see you on Zoom. I will call you next.
Thank you. My name is Craig Nesta. I live at 930 Walnut Street. I'm one of the official abutters of the property, and that's how I learned about this property update. Also, I'd like to, once again, thank everybody for the opportunity to comment on this, and also having witnessed the prior deliberations, I'm really impressed by the thoughtful questions and deliberations of this body on these projects. So thank you to everyone there. To give you some context, I'm a 27-year resident of Newton, initially in the Nonantum area, and now I've been in Newton Highlands for about 25 years. So I'm very familiar with the area. Unfortunately, over that time, especially in the Four Corners neighborhood, there's been considerable amount of tear downs and structures being rebuilt, many of which I'd consider outside the character of the neighborhood, which is extremely concerning. So in terms of this particular home located at 1062 Beacon Street, first I want to say, and I'll pay close attention to the time here, it's about the picture that was shown by the planning department, I know is the one published online, but the home right now, unfortunately, is in disrepair. Looking at the public record, it looks like this property was purchased about 5 years ago, maybe a little bit under that. And it's really distressing to see that property just be kind of neglected for 5 years. I would have liked to seen a little bit more responsible upkeep to it during that time. Unfortunately, it looks like there wasn't any to that point. I think the petitioner opened with something about 4 units of 2,000 square feet at most. I mean, when I read the document, it looked like there was 4 units, about 8768, maybe 10% broader. And keep in mind, the property there was a modest, small, single family, 2,000 square feet. And that is within the character of the neighborhood that has many one single family as well as two-family homes. So I believe that the property as proposed is outside the scope of the neighborhood in terms of size, breadth, and depth. I mean, we talk a lot about green space, and I like, there's 12 bedrooms, as I think one of the neighbors had suggested. You know, where is the places where people to go and hang out? We talk a lot about open space and green space, but a lot of these properties take the entire context of the entire yard. So I would be very concerned about this project because it's large in scale, outside the scope, in my opinion, of the community. Having 4 units, 3 stories on that lot of land is excessive. Special permits should be needed for extenuating circumstances, which I don't think this necessarily is one of them. And I just think this is the wrong approach to growth within Newton, is encouraging or setting the precedent, quite frankly, of creating 4 large housing units, 8,000 square feet over that on a small parcel of land. What's going to happen next door? Is that going to be 8 units? I mean, so I really appreciate continued thoughtful deliberation on this project to get to a point where the neighbors are happy as well as the developer. And then one quick thing to.
Thank you. I meant to, you noticed the timer, and I should have warned you ahead of time that
Can I say 10 more seconds?
Yes, I just wanted to point out to you that you have gone over the 3 minutes.
Thank you.
10 more
I
seconds.
also
before.
wanted to point out that I listened to the comment of Councilor Krinsman on the prior project, and I thought it was very productive what he said, that the developer met with the neighborhood and came to kind of a consensus. And that type of approach would be helpful.
Thank you so much. Jane Franz.
My name is Jane Franz. I live at 12 Glastonbury Oval, which is within walking distance of Four Corners. And I've lived here for, it's about 16 years now. And I love Four Corners. I think it's my little mini village. And I am there all the time. I walk there. It's a lovely area. And there, it has every amenity within walking distance that a resident could possibly want. In addition, it's within walking distance of Cold Spring Park, which I would consider to be another great advantage. So I'm here to speak in support of this project, and I know that you've had a long night, and would like to point out to you that I did send an email to you about it.
We did receive that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All set?
Yeah, all set.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else in the chamber want to speak on this? No, anyone else online? Let's take it into the committee. Councilor Downs, you had your hand up first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions about the various aqueducts. The Sudbury Aqueduct is widely used as a trail, one that connects this property both to Cold Spring Park on off-road and the other way through Jolly's Hollow to Newton Center Green and Tyler Terrace and the parks around Mason Rice. Will the access on the Sudbury Aqueduct be maintained for the public, or will that be blocked off? Is my first question. And the second question is the Cochituate Aqueduct. In your landscape plan, it appears there are trees. I'm curious whether that is allowed. It is not MWRA property anymore, but city property, I believe, but still in active use. And my sources at the MWRA are very strongly opposed to trees in any aqueduct because the roots may impact the basically brick structure underneath.
Mr. Lee, would you like to address that?
Yes, Madam Chair. So Councilor Downs, first question, we will not close off the access to the aqueduct, the Sudbury Aqueduct. As it relates to the trees, I think those are all existing trees. There are some that are quite mature and they're there. We don't have any intentions of touching them at all. So I think they've been there for quite some time.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Counselor Downs. Counselor Lucas?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Lee, welcome back. This site is interesting because there are aqueducts there, and I've been on the site previously, and there was a fence installed on the aqueduct. Are you familiar with this fence at all?
I know there are several fences. Which particular one are you referring to, Councilor
One
Lucas?
on the there was one previously on the Sudbury Aqueduct, and I just want to confirm that you are not going to install, or your client is not going to install any future fences on the aqueduct.
Correct. We're not allowed to install anything that MWRA does not permit through the 8M permit process.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So this is an interesting project because, and I know you weren't affiliated with this other one, but it kind of feels like it's going to be another 20 Clinton Street. And I know you have heard that address before. And I know you weren't associated with that, but that's what this project feels like. And I will explain why. This first floor is very, very misleading. The FAR that's counting the first floor FAR is only 500 square feet, where everything above is 4,000 square feet, and then another 4,000 square feet. That's very misleading because if the whole first floor was counting towards the FAR, you would be way, way above the allowable FAR in the business use 1 district. I understand that it doesn't count, but it's very, very misleading. And because of that, your FAR would be higher, but instead it's only 1.34, I believe, which also I believe is still very, very high. I don't know why this project can't be accomplished with 2.5 stories. But I don't know. One thing I find interesting is that the zoning relief that's being sought is requesting residential use on the first floor. But when I go to the architectural plans, I see parking spaces, I see an elevator mechanical room, trash and storage, a mechanical closet, an elevator, and a lobby. Where's the residential use on the first floor? It's all storage and cars.
Is this
That was a question.
directly to Mr. Lee?
That was a question for Mr. Lee.
I would have to defer to the zoning code official who made that determination, but I believe, if I have to guess, is that the common area access being part of that the residential units do need, they may look at it as part of the residential use, is my only guess.
Okay, planning, can you please explain why there is any residential use on the first floor?
Ms. Kemet, can you answer that? Or Ms. Wewell?
I believe what Attorney Lee has said is accurate. I can check that with our zoning code official, but I think it is part of the residential use. So it counts as a residential use as opposed to a commercial use.
Okay, well, I don't know what part is going to count towards it. Maybe it's the lobby. I mean, if that's the case, that is not, in my opinion, the appropriate intent of the ordinance when it says residential use. I expected bedrooms and kitchens, living rooms, dining rooms, not a 500 square foot lobby.
Yeah, Counselor Lucas, I can, upon thinking about it a little bit more, the entire building is residential, so there are no business uses, retail uses. So I believe that is sort of how the relief is being applied to the project, and that the entirety of the building is residential. Thus, all the components of a residential use, such as the parking and the lobby and mail room, those would fall under that broader category.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wewell. I'm not okay with this. I think the project is too big. It's very misleading with the FAR, where only 500 square feet counts towards the first floor FAR when it should be greater. It's going to appear much bigger than that 1.34 FAR. I think there's very little, we heard from one neighbor who lives a couple homes down, there's very little open space on site. I understand in the business use 1 district, the open space is not a requirement, but your setbacks are 1 foot, 2 foot, and 3 foot, I believe. Very little open space. The other thing I want to point out, and this is, I'm going to read verbatim from the planning memo, the amount of impervious cover will increase from 2,522 square feet to 4,759 square feet, a difference of 2,137 square feet. So it appears that Mr. Lee, your client, is going to double the amount of impervious surface on site. That's a lot. That's a lot of impervious surface than what's there right now. So those are my comments for right now. And I'll love to hear what everyone else has to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Labovitz.
I just want to echo Councillor Lucas's comments and the abutters who spoke against this for the same reasons. Way too big, and we would look. I would encourage a relook at the whole design to lower the scale and to create more open space. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to suggest exactly how the design should proceed, but I share those concerns. And is this Ward 6 or no?
It is.
So at the appropriate time, I'd like to move to hold this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from committee members at this time? Continue.
Can I add one more thing?
Yep.
Just to elaborate on this fence issue on the aqueduct. So that fence was in front of 1058, the A and B, and it was on the aqueduct. And I don't know why it was put there. It's been there, according to my information, for quite a while. It had been there for quite a while. I'm assuming, I don't want to make too many assumptions, but it seemed like it was placed there to block the view of rubbish and other debris that comes up to that area in the Whole Foods, adjacent to the Whole Foods parking lot and back area. So I'm just assuming, again, maybe I'm wrong, but assuming to block the view, but it was on the aqueduct. It was just recently removed. And I wonder about all of that, why it was placed there, who placed it, and why it was removed. So I definitely will not vote for this until that is explained. And I don't look for an explanation now. It sounds like you may not have one, but at a subsequent meeting, I would appreciate a comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Labovitz. Councillor Leary.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, some of the positive things about this project that I do like. I do like smaller units where people are less dependent on cars, either near amenities. It is actually an easy walk to Cold Spring Park, going down Beaconwood, and it's the trails, as has been mentioned, the aqueduct walks and are also there. So I think it is actually a good place to raise a family. I think making it a little smaller is not a bad idea. It also makes the units more affordable. I am aware of its location, and it is both near, of course, right next to Whole Foods, but also there are other residential homes. So it's kind of in the crux, right in the middle of that. So I'm hearing some concerns from my colleagues. I would like to see a version of this pass and get to yes on it. The fact that it's an elevator building, and I hear a lot from Newton residents about being able to age in place, and this would really check a lot of our boxes. And so I really do like that about it. Some of my colleagues have raised concerns about the the size of it, and I am sensitive to that as well. It is on a very small lot. So I think if we could work on meeting some of those concerns, I would like to see some changes made around that. But this is something that I definitely would want to support when it comes back to us.
Thank you, Counselor O'Leary. Counselor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that I appreciate one member of the public who brought to our attention that a curb cut would be immediately adjacent to the existing curb cut, which was used by the residents of this house and is used by the other development that's on this aqueduct. And even though one curb cut is for that development and this would be for a second development, they would be literally right next to each other on an extremely busy street, and that doesn't strike me as terribly wise. So that's the only comment I want to make on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from any of our colleagues? I'll just briefly say, I think we're going to be entertaining a motion to hold that. I agree with a lot of what Councilor Leary said. I think there are a lot of good things about this project. We see more and more sites like this in Newton that are very oddly configured or constrained, and that's because those are the sites that we have left to work on. And it was a pretty creative way of trying to address it, though it does take a lot of the site. I like that they're smaller units. They could be even a little bit smaller, perhaps. I like that there's parking underneath. I like that there's elevators. I like the location in terms of amenities, easy to get to. To me, this seems like something that will be able to be worked out, hopefully the next time we see it. Who's making the motion? Councilor Lobovitz, yes, thank you.
Public hearing would stay open, right?
Yes,
So I move to hold the item. Thank you.
I guess we could just do a roll call, but I'm pretty sure we could do it on a voice vote too. Want to do a roll call?
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs, Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
We'll see.
7-0-1.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're adjourned. We will see you again, Team 1026 Beacon Street.
Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Night.